it's like learning to ride a bike for your first time, and that sense of freedom that a kid gets.
I've always wanted to go up the Amazon, and
Yeah.
Tintin's going up the Amazon.
And so when you are a kid and you've learned to ride a bike, there's all these, opportunities open. Risk opens, wrecks open, but speed, like the possibilities of speed way beyond the abilities of your own legs to run. All these things open up, and I think Tintin has that kind of effect. Suddenly you could go anywhere and do anything and find any treasure.
Met a ghost of a king on the road when I first fell. Fire burning to my knees I fell. Met a ghost of a king on the road.
Episode 163, I guess.
Yeah.
Pinch hitter.
Yep. Pinch hit episode on, well, I don't know. Do we need to talk about the fact that our president was almost shot again?
I don't think so.
We just skip over that.
Just so what?
I know.
I mean,
it's nuts.
As people say, how did he know about the spontaneous round of golf?
Oh, yeah.
That's a question.
That is the question.
Lucky guess? Trump golfs a lot? I don't know. But here we sit.
How long has this weird
I would like to flag the fact that so far I've been incorrect. They haven't made Kamala president yet. And I've been expecting that sort of by the end of this month or early October. I've been expecting, Biden to exit and Kamala
but
to
you did see Biden put on the Trump hat.
Yes.
Okay, so you think there's some internal problems.
It's sort of like I will still be surprised if we reach the election and Kamala is not the serving president.
And you saw this guy was in a BlackRock commercial as well.
Was he really?
Yes.
How?
These are the questions we ask.
How? It's, as an author myself, I wonder if these are just Easter eggs to send us like careening.
Totally.
I mean, it feels more like we're getting trolled. It's
Right.
too easy. It's too obvious.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
And this time,
I know people want him dead. Okay.
Yeah.
I know the deep state wants him dead, but is the deep state really this incompetent?
Well, also
Maybe.
this time they got his social media records, which made me think that we were meant to find his social media records. But he's just as dumb. He was the guy who was willing to die for Ukraine. He's just an insane person.
Just a Looney Tune.
Anyways,
we weren't going to talk about it, but we just talked about it.
We're going to talk about something that has sold 200 million copies in the first century after its publishing, which is
Moby Dick.
No, not even close. The Adventures of Tintin.
Oh, yes.
Did you forget?
Yes, I did forget we were talking about Tintin, but I'm excited.
Yeah. No, we'll talk about the movie. We'll talk about the cartoons themselves.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the adaptations and some of the changes.
What are we talking about? The colonialism?
Well, I know you are not very interested in talking DEI, but I do like to force that into our episodes.
Yeah.
The Tintin that, no one is allowed to purchase anymore. The Tintin in the Congo.
Yep. That one is pretty racist.
It is. It's just not good.
Yeah.
It's also a bad story.
Yeah. It's not great.
Yeah.
But Tintin in general, and even the nature of the stories at all, or all this outward adventure, imperialistic, old treasures, old societies, all the things that really scratched my fancy as a young boy.
Yeah.
They were hard to find in my childhood. These books were very difficult to find.
I remember fighting over them in the library. I would have come along just a few years after you, and they were better. There were
more.
Yeah, you could find the Red Sea Sharks in the library reliably, but you couldn't find any of the other Tintins.
There was a copy of Tintin in Tibet that was battered in your dad's classroom when I was in 5th grade.
See, and good job, Dad.
At the very least, you were busy being born. I don't know if it was supposed to be there. I don't know if it was part of his collection or if I just know I was reading it, this very beat up Tintin in Tibet in his classroom in 5th grade.
Yeah, I was given Tintin at Christmases growing up, but they were always in those 3-in-1 editions, which are just not quite the right size.
Right.
The small squashed ones.
We bought those. We bought those for the kids just to have all of them. But yeah, the big tabloid size is much better. I had King Ottokar's Scepter, which I bought with my own monies in Annapolis, Maryland. And I honestly have not dealt with envy or greed or just discontentment as much as I did in this little shop in Annapolis, Maryland, walking in and seeing so many Tintins. And at that point, I'd only read Tintin in Tibet, and you turn these books over and they have all the other books
Best
on the back.
marketing ever. And because the cover art's amazing.
And it's
the
like
titles sell themselves.
It's like Bedknobs and Broomsticks got me this way too, where it's like, here I have a fragment of a book. I've got this fragment of a thing, and it's part of some other thing, and it's powerful and it's magical and it's amazing. But here's only a piece of it.
Wait, I'm not familiar.
With Bedknobs and Broomsticks, the movie, Angela Lansbury. You've not seen this film?
This is not good. It sounds great.
Yes, you need to watch this with your sons immediately.
Okay, deal.
The end, the payoff is fantastic, but it's really kind of the sprawling, very sprawling story.
Well, there it is.
And
it is real. Nate's not making it up.
Yeah, I actually tried to throw my hat in the ring with Disney to like be involved in when they're doing all the new live action. I was like, get me on Bedknobs and Broomsticks. They ignored me, as is their wont. As far as I know, they ignored me. Or they politely said no to my manager. But anyway, in that story, as a little kid watching that story, finding a fragment of something powerful, like here's this piece of a book, and you're trying to find it, and you're trying to find the rest of it. For me, I had that real life experience with Tintin, where you're reading Tintin in Tibet, and then you look at the back, and here's all these other Tintin stories, and where are they?
Yeah,
and there is no Amazon, and they're not at the library, and where are these books?
Right. You can't find Cigars of the Pharaohs. You can't find.
Yeah. So walking on a trip to Maryland to see my dad's childhood town, we were out there. I don't remember why we were out there, but we were out there. And walking into a little gift shop and seeing the Tintins, like encountering the big tabloid size Tintins was just amazing. Really, truly amazing. And so with all my money, meaning I could afford one, it was just agony. It was total agony. So King Ottokar Scepter, it was.
That was a good choice, though.
Yeah, it was a good one. Purchased for the design of the weapons.
Those halberds on the front?
Yeah.
Those are pretty sweet, yeah.
And that was the one I had that I brought home. I've got it somewhere with the pages all falling out.
Yeah.
And but the amazingness of the back, of flipping it over and just seeing all the books I wanted, all the things I wanted. So when the little ones came, 3-to-1 hardcovers, we just immediately purchased all of them for the kids. We'd have all of them. And they didn't have the same kind of yearning, like, experience that I had of stories that were not available to you that you're trying to get to. And yet they still loved them. So they still were all fans of Tintin, even though they had the riches of all the stories there, even though they were smaller and it was too small.
I think that is part of the problem. My boys are spoiled with some pretty high quality graphic novels, whereas now that I didn't have when I was a kid.
Yep.
And now mine are kind of like, oh, okay, I'll look at a Tintin if I'm bored.
And
you don't understand.
And then we discovered the Canadian cartoon, the actual like original Tintin show that was made in Montreal or wherever, and so they had it, and the episodes, all they do is just follow. They just follow the stories.
It's one of the most faithful adaptations.
Yeah, it's like they're just following the graphic novel. The actual big tabloid graphic novel comic is just like the storyboard for the episode, and they just do it. And man, the kids just consumed those, loved those. They were eventually stolen out of our car. I don't remember
by a thief with great taste.
Yeah, a thief with magnificent taste stole all of our Tintin DVDs. Actually, a whole pack of our road trip DVDs, and it is to my great pleasure. My daughter was watching those Tintin cartoons because she was young enough to kind of miss out on that moment. Yeah. The older kids were reading the Tintin stories and also watching the Tintin cartoons on Saturdays, and they were able to do this. My youngest is just she's creative enough and she's artistic enough that she really has enjoyed watching them, like jumping in on Canon Plus and be like, hey, we have these Tintin cartoons, which is amazing. That's the point of what we're talking about, is that we have the Tintin cartoons on Canon Plus. Now, these are the kinds of things that I like, the itches I try to scratch, the things I put in the hopper for Brian. And I'm just like, really, 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 really get me the Tintin cartoons.
Did it take us years?
Yes. But they
are here.
But they're here.
All of them, all 39 episodes.
And there's a couple other shows like that I really am hoping we can get, like my childhood. Like
yeah, they're coming.
The amazing adventure
Actually, I shouldn't
stories.
Promise. Hopefully sooner than a year. We'll move faster.
We'll keep moving. But these 39 are just really, really fun. How long do we have them on the platform? Is it a year?
A year for sure.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So 1 year at least now. 1 year license. We've got all the Tintin cartoons.
And they're for U.S. and Canadians only.
Yeah.
U.S. and Canadians only. So if you live in one
North
of those countries.
America.
If you live in those countries, we did it for you. For the rest of the world,
you're on your own.
Soon. You're going to be stuck with the written word.
And the thing that's funny is like the Spielberg Tintin movie just kind of disappointed.
Yeah. I want to talk about that. I also thought it would be good to talk about like some of what we've discussed before, but the development of comic strips, because I'm reading Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay right now. Yeah. And found out that Tintin also started as a supplemental serialized comic strip that eventually, I think Herge saw the writing, started his own production company and made the cartoons. Decided I'm going to make these books myself rather than continuing to serialize in the youth supplements, the papers. Yeah. And so that was a brilliant move. It's 200 million copies later.
200 million copies.
But that's fascinating. But starting with Spielberg, why did it disappoint?
Because I think that he went after something that lost the actual kind of flavor of it. Mm-hmm. And we've referred to this before, but C.S. Lewis talks about film adaptations that change the nature of the fear or the nature of the peril. And so if you're telling a story and somebody's going to, they're going to die in a cave, they're going to die slowly in the dark of starvation while lost in a cave, that's a very particular kind of fear. Like you're trapped in the dark, you can't find a way out, versus drowning or being eaten by a shark. Like there's just different.
Or sure, there's a bear in the cave, right?
Yeah.
Like that kind of.
Yeah, there's immediately different kinds of peril, and it changes the flavor of the story, the flavor of the fear, the flavor of the resolution. It changes all those things. Tintin, in a similar way, Tintin had this very simple, childish, wish fulfillment adventure structure, and also a very simple 2D
the clear line style that Herge
and so it left a ton to the imagination. And so the clear line style when you're reading a Tintin book or when you're watching the Tintin cartoon is requiring you to do a lot of work. There's a lot of mental engagement because of the understatement of the art, and there's enough that's there that kind of like really is compelling, but it's not all done for you. Mm-hmm. It's like you're still so far away from the real, from realism, that you can't quite.
Yeah, and I'm realizing
get there
too that we probably have to explain, because last time we talked about Tintin, there were people who messaged me and said I'd never heard of Tintin. Which 200
million copies sold, and
apparently
people still
only
haven't. And that is
Belgium.
funny. That is kind of funny that's the case. That's always the case.
Yeah, and so him as a reporter who does these adventures and a bunch of
his dog Snowy.
Yep. Accompanied by the bumbling policeman.
Thompson and Captain Haddock.
Yeah, his drunk friend.
Yeah.
And hard of hearing Professor Calculus. That's kind of the the nugget of Tintin. The sort of the archetype is just that pure adventure.
Yeah,
with the squad.
And they really hit this low middle grade level, but it's very fun to for kids and older people to go down to it and enjoy it, because there's no romance.
Yeah.
There's no relationships. There's no like find the girl, get married. He's too young for that. Like he's just this.
Yeah. The only
really
Bianca Castafiore shows up in a few of them, but she's not Tintin's beloved. She's
it's not that there's an absence of women or the concept of beautiful women or whatever, but Tintin is not himself in a relationship. He's not out there.
Yeah. He's a reporter
with his, or even with his sister. It's not a boy and a girl. It's just this kid and his dog on these adventures. And he's much too young to be a reporter. He's much too baby-faced, and yet
He also doesn't really write.
No.
He's much more of a detective.
Yep, exactly.
Which it did make me, all of these things make me wonder if there's something going on with the translation that we didn't quite pick up.
Maybe. The
but that gets
Belgians
back,
and the French could let us know.
Right. But that's where you're getting back to, you're saying when you then take Tintin and make it that 3D animation style.
Yep. You go Spielberg on it and you take it to really high level production. It's beautifully done. And you lost a little bit of the wish fulfillment. You lost a little bit of this experience. So it's not like Tintin should have been done by Miyazaki, but if it had been, it would have had a completely different effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think of the specific examples. So that scene when he's in, I don't remember which African city it is, but he's like basically driving his motorcycle down the streets, and just flying out. In a comic book, that would be full of tons of exclamation points and big thick letters and explosive symbols and people shouting, lightning bolts at each other. But Spielberg has to show you every step of that crash down the city. And you're saying that's kind of what is dissatisfying because you sort of just saw it.
Yeah,
you didn't experience it.
I think that it could be done. It could be done the way he did it, and the narrative could have been more satisfying by itself. The narrative could have done a better job. But the animation style, which was fun to look at, wasn't as compelling to the imagination. It wasn't as stimulating to the imagination as the simpler stuff. And so if you think about the exact same movie, even if the narrative is not improved, and you have the exact same movie done by Miyazaki versus done by Amblin and Spielberg, where they went, 3D, still cartoon characters, but 3D realism, and trying to be as
sophisticated.
Trying to have it as sophisticated and leaving nothing blank, nothing to impression, nothing impressionistic about it at all. Just everything filled in. Versus Miyazaki doing the exact same film, the tone and the magicalness of it, the magic and the experience of otherworldliness that Tintin brings, I think would be completely different. So just even the same script executed with gorgeous backgrounds, but very simple and character animation versus intricately textured and lit CG over here with Spielberg, one just would work better.
Okay,
so even though the cartoons are very, very lo-fi,
like
they're very, very lo-fi, they're absorbing and fun, and and they actually capture the kerpow, lightning bolt nature of
Tintin in Tibet
comics.
Getting chased by the Yeti is really fun.
Yep.
But if they showed the Yeti, it'd be more like it was trying to be like the Star Wars Hoth, the snow monster, where you're trying to make it real.
Too much realism, just kind of you lose the magic a little bit.
Okay, what happens if we push Tintin even further and we get you to direct a live action Tintin? How does that fail? Or can it succeed?
It could succeed. It would take a minute to really think through it, but it could succeed. You'd have to really try to find the way to set the same kind of hook. Like, how do you set this particular flavor of hook story-wise in the viewer? How do you get them to come along and care? There's not all this character work done for Tintin in the books. The thing that's absorbing is like we're off and we're adventuring and it's mysterious.
He found something in the ground and he's pulling it up. And,
it's like mystery. Here's a thing, and it's a puzzle, and I'm off and I'm chasing, and it's going to lead to treasure and some amazing civilization. And you're kind of like stepping into this world, this comic world that you're running alongside him in, as opposed to the way live action storytelling has to be executed in terms of basic 3-act structure, but having to latch onto a character and give that character an arc that's fulfilling and has a release and a catharsis by Act 3. We don't need that in the comic books with Tintin, because Tintin is a placeholder for your childish imagination. So we're not sympathetic to him and watching him grow as a human, and we're not watching him go on this hero's journey.
Sure.
It's just a motorcycle sidecar that we are climbing into.
Every time he gets knocked out, it's never like, oh no, I feel so bad for Tintin. It's always like, how will he get out of
Yeah, it's like,
this
show
shit
me what's
hold.
next, what's going on. And I want to see the cool weapons and the cool treasure and civilization and so on. So to do live action would be difficult. It'd be pretty difficult. It's probably not impossible, but you'd have to really work on the adaptation to try to do something different with a character that's still compatible with the magic of the original. So the magic of the original is hop in and be carried along like Snowy, be carried along like one of Tintin's friends on this adventure with your buddy and discover, hidden worlds and treasures and so on. But he doesn't have a flaw that is worked out and resolved, and have a different one for all 39 episodes that we have on Canon Plus. He is that motorcycle you're climbing onto the back of, and you're just enjoying the external adventure. Mm-hmm. The adventure is entirely external to him, and the magic is in the world and so on, which is why I think Miyazaki would be interesting, because he does these gorgeous backgrounds, simple character, and it kind of creates some of that effect, that you get to put this character on like a pair of shoes and kind of go through. And he does more character journey and arc, obviously, than exists in Tintin. Yeah. But I think that you'd have like a live action, maybe 3 that you could do. Right. Right. If you're trying to do a film, a feature. Huh. If you're trying to do a series,
then you might
might
be able, just because you're moving from set to set, and that would be really fun.
Yeah. But what does Tintin care about? Who are his parents?
Yeah.
Like, who
cares? Yeah.
It's just completely empty. What darkness does he carry in his heart? What grief? What secret sorrow has he got with him? How is he victimized coming up? Why is he so intent on solving these things? Why does he
never quit? Yeah.
Why does he never, ever quit, and just has this insatiable drive to keep going and to find all these treasures, but never strike it rich and retire? He and his dog are just going and going and going with his friends. And that is very much a backyard, kids playing in the backyard kind of scenario. So I really do think it captures that kind of magic of young middle grade, of going out in the backyard and just playing. Mm-hmm. We're just playing a game, and it's fun and it's spectacular and it's big. And so I think the best thing about Tintin is that it trains the imagination into these really fun possibilities.
Yeah, I think too, Tintin's the hero, right? So he's surrounded by the cast that always has the key weakness. Yeah. And the hero's job is to sort of move and negotiate and lead everybody so that Haddock does the right thing at the right time. Thompson and Thompson stumble into the bad guy. Snowy helps him right when he needs it. Yeah. There's always the characters who move in a Tintin story are always the people that he's helping. So if one of my favorites, Tintin and the Picaros, it's that weird general character. Yeah. The upstart general in the jungle that you're kind of on board with. The first one to do a bunch of clown masks with rifles. It's like it feels like something that those are the characters that actually move over time. Yeah. Or in the Blue Lotus, it's Tintin's young friend, right, who's trying to be helped out. Or some of the weirder ones, like the Flight 747 with the where it gets sci-fi. Those are the aspects that I think Herge realized. Yeah, you can have the characters move all around, but
Tintin's the engine on the train. Yeah, but he's just dragging through. Yeah, he's just going, and so we don't leave. We leave with satisfaction, but we don't leave with Tintin like, well, now he's a man. It's like he's now come of age. Yeah. Now he's realized what's important in life. Like, no, that growth does happen around him. Mm-hmm. It happens in peripheral characters, but it doesn't happen for him, because that's not what he's about. He's just that doorway to the backyard, that doorway to adventure for kids to send their imaginations through. Yeah. And I really enjoy it, a lot.
So I remember when I found out that Belgian people didn't speak English and Snowy's name was not, in fact, Snowy in the originals, but I think Milou, like a my dear, basically. Yeah. And sort of that felt like blasphemy to me.
Yep.
Because I was like, wait, Snowy's...
Our translation is better.
Yeah, doesn't it seem like it?
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear. And then Thompson and Thompson and DuPont or whatever with D's and T's.
DuPont.
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 The T is silent. The D is silent. It works. Yeah. That part works nicely.
The translators did well.
Yeah. But that kind of cracks me up too. It feels like my son was poring over a graphic novel of The Hobbit, which was functionally just huge blocks of text with some cool illustrations. And I was realizing
it's like an illustrated edition.
Yeah. Well, no, it just everybody talked way too much. And I just was thinking of how perfectly Tintin merged the amount of conversation with the pains. And again, I think that's part of what, he seemed like he did a great job of. One of the first steps in comic strip illustration was expanding and, filling full pages, like what the early Superman did, where he's like skyscraper jumping across an entire page where everyone's like, whoa, I thought it just came in panels.
Yeah.
But Tintin started to do that too, where it would just be, full scenes of him riding away on his horse being chased by the Indians, with nothing being said. Or I remember in that one, Tintin in the Americas, the forest, the prairie fires coming after them, and all the animals are running along with Tintin.
And you don't do a bunch of the weird format splash outs. He keeps it pretty paneled.
No, yeah, definitely, definitely
paneled through, and it's pretty funny. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He's not trying to startle you. He's not trying to startle you with his own artistry. He's not trying to make you, the reader, look at him, the author.
Mm.
He's just trying to make you look at Tintin and ride along with Tintin.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more stylization and variation that comes in graphic novels now, creativity and layout and all that kind of thing. And that's, I think, expected because readers are a little more sophisticated visually than they were at the time. But also it's because people are trying to matter. They're trying to be artists, which is great to try to be an artist, to try to be artistic with something.
Yeah.
But that is just not how Tintin lays it out. It's not how the cartoons work. It's not how the comics work. It's just very straightforward. It's all about the story. It's all about the action. It's all about the mystery, and very little about Tintin or about the artist.
Yeah, it's egoless.
Yeah,
both
it really is,
and the story and the character. Actually, I mean, I think
very much.
I'm trying to remember. I think there's a few times when Tintin gets mad.
Yeah,
but like in 39,
some frustration.
There's some minor frustration.
Yeah. Yep. But it is. In thinking back and just kind of like diagnose why it was so effective for me individually as a 5th grade boy, but also globally, why it's been so effective, why so many units have sold. I really do think that it's that vehicle. It's like learning to ride a bike for your first time, and that sense of freedom that a kid gets of like freedom of motion,
sure,
and freedom of adventure and risk.
Yeah, I've always wanted to go up the Amazon, and Tintin's going up the Amazon.
And so when you are a kid and you've learned to ride a bike, there's all these opportunities open, risk opens, wrecks open, but speed, like the possibilities of speed way beyond your the abilities of your own legs to run. All these things open up. And I think Tintin has that kind of effect in childhood to the imagination, where it's like learning to ride a bike with your imagination for the first time, where you just kind of take off and you could go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like suddenly you could go anywhere and do anything and find any treasure.
Yeah. It also, he's complicated enough that I think he can do that. It can bear some weight. Whereas you think of something like, I don't know, Dennis the Menace, odious stuff where you're just like, this has nothing except what's on the surface, and it does feel like Tintin is able to bear some weight. The plots are just complicated enough, and there's enough twists and turns that it's kind of fun.
Yep.
Which I think is underrated as well.
Absolutely. And so honestly, I would encourage parents to let your kids kind of like jump on the Tintin cartoons. Get the books if you can. Find the books where you can find them, but get on the cartoons while they're here. Yeah. There's different shows that have come and gone, or it's hard to find, easy to find, and right now the Tintin cartoons are hard to find. In the death of DVDs, where you could just get these Canadian DVDs back in the day, which we had before they were stolen. It's funny now. There's times when I've said, "Oh, hey kids, I want to show you this movie," we're gonna watch this film, and it's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not even for sale on Amazon. It's like it's
gone.
in the vaults somewhere, lost. There's no
Chips
Blockbuster.
the War Dog, which was deep for the 6-year-old me. You can't find Chips the War Dog anywhere
until you find it and put it on Canon Plus, right?
Plus, yeah.
Same. Return to Treasure Island. I've told you 100 times. Return to Treasure Island had this kind of effect on me. The kind of effect the Tintin had, but just older, like older, more mature. And my sisters and I loved watching it when it came through the Disney Channel when we were little. And it's just, where is it? Good luck trying to find it. You can find little tiny chunks of it in different places on YouTube. I had the UK DVDs, and I had to like program our DVD player to be universal and to play UK DVDs. And that was, even then it was ridiculously hard to find. And now even that's gone.
Yeah.
So,
but now you can go to joincanonplus.com
and watch Tintin
and get a free trial.
And hopefully later we will land Return to Treasure Island, Chips the War Dog, and other things that we want to.
Well, yeah,
I don't think we'll get Bed Knobs and Broomsticks, but we can try.
Well, if you direct it, I think.
No, the old one. And of course, that one's great too, because people will be like, "But witches, there's witchcraft." And it's like, okay, well, we can talk about that, and it's a good conversation to have with your kids. It's one of those movies that you can have a lot of fun watching and still be able to talk about, like, well, they should have structured the magic differently, or what did they say about magic, and
similar to Herge and how he treats certain ethnicities.
Yeah, yeah. Herge is in fact a Belgian imperialist racist.
Yeah,
the Belgians didn't exactly do great work in Central Africa. A little bit notorious.
For having really pooped.
Scapegoated by some people in the woke age, but still, pretty terrible stuff. So some of his perspective is, don't get that book. Don't.
But it is kind of fascinating.
The really bad ones you can't get.
Yeah.
So
Tintin in the Congo is I don't think available. And I think too, what you'll find if you compare that story with one of his good ones, it's just a bad story.
Yep.
It's almost as if being a racist
his little
his stories in that way, or if you like, if I guess that's the wrong way of putting it, but
no, I think that's exactly right. Like his toxicity around other humans made him incapable of telling that story.
Yeah, so then Tintin shoots something like 50 to 70 animals in that story as well. It's just like Herge had nothing to talk about except a fake witchcraft in the village.
Kill it.
Yeah, and shoot the animals, and that was kind of in his view. He's like, I guess that's what I do in the Congo. That's the only.
Kind of what we Belgians do when adventuring in the Congo.
It's like I can't communicate how valuable ivory is right now.
We kill a lot of animals and we do horrible things. But yeah, so this is not to say that everything he ever did was wonderful, but I am incredibly grateful for the books, for what they did to my imagination at a critical time of life. They're a big part of why I write what I write and why I got the bug of storytelling and adventure in the 5th grade. And by the 6th grade, you ladle Lord of the Rings on and Narnia on there, and with some Tintin in there too. It's like, well, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do professionally, is tell stories like this.
Yeah.
And so especially Ashtown, the Ashtown series is got this kind of like a little bit of Tintin spice. There's a little bit of this spice pulled
Absolutely.
back.
It's got the explorer thing behind it.
And let's try to really get this
built into it of just, not just kids having to go through a school, but this idea that the entire world has been searching for treasures.
And there's an interstate system that nobody knows about. There's this network that you could go globally around the entire world in all these different adventures that nobody knows about, that just this one group has access to. So Tintin is as influential, or way up there, probably more influential than any number of great authors. A lot more influential than Mark Twain.
Yeah,
even though I've drawn on Twain, a lot more influential to me than Steinbeck, even though I love Steinbeck and Steinbeck's prose. Tintin's up there for me, and was pretty potent in the 5th grade.
Sure. I mean, Tintin discovering, a gorilla in the money printing mill in Loch Ness. Like, I mean, that sort of feeling of excitement, but out of the ordinary.
Yep.
You can't bottle it.
So, but we tried. So,
but you can find that on Canon Plus.
Yeah.
Because...
So we got 39 episodes right now on Canon Plus. Get a free trial. If you don't already have a subscription, get a subscription if you feel up to it, and let your kids, especially if they're in that like lower elementary, like if you're down below 5th grade, let your kids really enjoy it. Older kids can enjoy it too. You got to take it like 1 or 2 at a time. It's not like you can watch 8 in a row and remain thrilled. Don't binge on the Oreo cookies, but they're really, really fun. For those
I'm
young
curious.
minds.
I need to go watch some of the books that I didn't like. Just because I think Tintin and the Shooting Star, I remember being particularly poor.
Kinda like, meh.
And again, I think it's because he tried to introduce the end of the world and some prophecy into the story that just didn't fit, or he hadn't done enough.
The bones didn't hold it quite.
And I'm curious to see how they did that in the cartoon.
Yeah. So I do love the cartoons because it's just the book.
Yeah.
Just the story of the book. The book was a storyboard, and this is what.
Also, if you're a dad who's ever tried to read Tintin out loud, it doesn't work.
No.
And so it's nice to, for the non-reading members, you can't
It's pretty fun.
I remember my dad just being like, do I really? I think he tried to read, and he finally was like, I'm not going to say billions of blue blistering barnacles one more time. He's like, you're just going to understand that if Haddock is talking, he says it.
He's going to say that. I'm really curious for some of these listeners and viewers, if they cut their kids loose on some of these cartoons, especially the younger kids, I'm curious how they're going to respond. Like new generation, like how does this magical lo-fi 2D adventure cartoon hold up for
that's
kids right now? I'm pretty curious.
Well, a battle we have in our home, which I'm sure you've been through, but is when the elementary kids are writing their stories at Logos. Right?
Yeah.
They're doing their weekly compositions, and I'm trying to push them to write a better composition than just, I saw my friend and stabbed him. Like they rename, it's that kind of thing of, it does feel like something like Tintin is the way to start pushing.
Let's see how it works, Brian.
So we're going to find out.
You've got your own little guinea pigs.
We're going to find out because, I have, 3rd grade's really the year when it starts, where they're having to start to create on their own. And they start out with just like 3 places I'd very much like to visit. And
just add a little Tintin and the imagination will run amok.
Yeah, and my son picked 3 states, and I was like, those are the only.
I would
spots.
like to go to Cheyenne, Wichita, and Billings.
Right.
You're like, what?
And I was like, why do you want to go to Texas? And he writes, because it's very dry there. It's good stuff.
Come on, Brian. We got to put some more. We got to put some more imagination fodder in there.
Yeah, clearly, but that's what it's here for.
I mean, my second son in 2nd grade was assigned an animal report. And in great moments in parenting too, he came into the kitchen and said, "Hey, I got to look up my animal. Like I've got to do my animal report. Can I, Mom, can I Google on your computer?" Mm-hmm. And he turns around like, "Can I Google my animal? I got to find animal facts." And we're like, "Well, we'll get you a book to look through. Like, we don't want you just to Google." And I think, "But I can, can I search for it also?" And he was typing in cougars in there to searge. And then we was like, no,
please, please stop.
No, we'll get you hold on. We'll get, we're going to get you the books. And intercepted. But then it didn't matter because we got him all those sources, and with his personality, the way he is, and his was very much, and this is still part of his flair. His paper, his animal report, he wrote a play-by-play of an entire Cougar basketball game, and we didn't know. It's like we got him stuff about Cougars, and he had pictures, and he just from the tip-off through the final buzzer. Just a dry game cast play-by-play of who was dribbling, who was passing, who was shooting, miss, made, rebound, and just did a play-by-play of a Cougar basketball game and then turned it in to a 2nd grade teacher.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And of course, she was highly amused, and his older sister at the same age had gotten very bored of hers and had introduced goblins, and it had turned into a whole fantasy. So she turned in fiction, goblin fiction, and her little brother turned into Cougar play-by-play.
Yeah.
So we've always been a little off the mark in the Wilson house.
Nice.
Just a little bit.
That's great. My children are just into any violence that they can shoehorn in, you know.
Well,
machine animal.
have they gotten to watch any Tintin cartoons yet?
Not yet. But
when's the big night? Or Saturday morning?
Well, I think it should be this weekend. We're gonna do it. It's up on Canon Plus now, so
the kids will get to dive in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So give us feedback. I'm curious how it works with your elementary kids. Like I think 5th grade and down, really. Yep. I mean, older kids. I expect some older kids will find it funny and enjoy. They might not have the same tolerance to watch as many as the younger kids do.
Yeah.
But there's 39 out there, and I'm very pleased that we were able to license them and get them on Canon Plus.
How cool is that? To have a
Pretty
streaming
cool.
platform.
Feels suddenly like, wait, we have a streaming platform.
Yeah.
Turns out we do actually have that.
Yep.
So anyway, this has been SASF. I do think Tintin cartoons are very, very worth your time.
Yeah. We want to hear what grew out of that fodder.
Yeah. And I want to know how your own sons, Brian, I want to know how their imaginations are affected.
I'm excited to find out myself.
I don't know that we should wait for the weekend. I think you might want to just give them one tonight.
Yeah.
They're short.
Feeding them on
They're
it.
short. Just one tonight, one tomorrow night.
They would love that.
After Tintin.
Tintin. That's what that's probably the initiative that needs to start in all Canon Plus and store
after Tintin cartoons.
It is a Tintin initiative. We watch Tintin during dinner.
Yeah, right afterwards. Give them a little ice cream. Let them dive in on a cartoon.
Yeah. No, that's great.
Alrighty, this has been episode 160 something. Depends on what order we release them in.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers.
Imagine the well-read man. Do you see a machine dressed in tweed, gorging on information? This book is not about becoming that kind of reader. The well-read man wakes up and consults with Moses on his way to work.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which hath brought thee out of the land.
He sips his coffee and ponders the wisdom of Hannibal's elephants crossing the Alps. He turns furrow-browed philosophers upside down and takes their lunch money. He changes his oil and deliberates with Peter Drucker about effective management practices. He regales his wife with the tale of Monet's water lilies in the gardens at Giverny. He sings with Sandra Boynton as his toddler's eyes grow heavy. This book is about becoming that man. Be as human as you can be. Learn how to read a book.